In special operations training, there's a file that's only opened behind closed doors. It contains no offensive plans or defensive tactics, but something far deeper: how to reprogram your fear so that fear itself becomes afraid of you. Do you suffer from social anxiety? Do you avoid speaking in gatherings? Do you dread meetings? Are you afraid of asking questions, of being embarrassed, of being watched? Do you feel like people's eyes are attacking you, and everyone around you sees your confusion, your stammering, your trembling hands, and your voice betraying you at crucial moments? Do you fear the simplest confrontation and wish you could just disappear to escape? If you understand this feeling, you're not alone, but you're also not who you are, because what's inside you can be reprogrammed. And this is exactly what the elite are taught in the psychological training rooms of special operations units. In this video, I won't give you superficial techniques like speak confidently or face your fears. Instead, I'll show you how to use the symptoms of phobia themselves as a tool to build prestige, not to escape from them. I'll give you the very steps that are instilled in every person's mind before they're thrown into a situation where no mistakes are allowed. Steps that, if you understand them, will ensure you're never the same again. A small warning: this isn't a video you'll watch and forget. If you finish it, you won't leave the same way you came in. Instead, you'll leave with a personality that isn't controlled by fear, but one that controls fear. The story of Tom, from a young man afraid to even say his name aloud to one whose presence silences halls before he speaks. On an ordinary day at university, Tom entered the lecture hall and sat in the corner, as he always did. He didn't look anyone in the eye, and wished for nothing more than for the day to pass without being asked anything. But that day, the professor called him out in front of everyone. "Tom, read this line." The request wasn't difficult, but for Tom, it was like a death sentence. He became flustered. His hands began to tremble. His voice vanished. When he tried to speak, a strange sound came out, as if someone else was trying to speak in his place, but didn't know how. Some students laughed, and Tom couldn't continue. He closed the book and left the hall, feeling as though the earth had shrunk around him, not because he couldn't read, but because he didn't know how to face his fear. Days passed after the incident, and Tom became more and more isolated. He wasn't talking, and he wasn't going out much. Even his phone became silent, as if he had lost the desire to communicate with the world. But one night, he received a surprising call. A name appeared on the screen that hadn't been seen in years: Jack. He was his old friend from school, the only person who had ever understood him. But he had suddenly disappeared 4 years ago after joining the army, and Tom hadn't heard from him since. Tom answered, his voice hesitant. Jack's voice came from the other end with strange confidence. "I'm in the city. Let's meet tonight." They sat in a small cafe near the university. Tom didn't know how to start the conversation, but Jack initiated it. His appearance had changed. His features were calm, but there was something indescribable about him. His gaze was steady, and his words were few, but weighty. Tom asked him, "Where have you been all these years?" Jack smiled and said, "I was in a place where you're not allowed to talk much." He paused, then calmly added, "I spent 3 years in a special unit, psychological, physical, mental training, something unlike anything I'd known before." Tom felt something strange. He listened as if he were hearing about another world. Tom then told Jack, "I need to tell you something. I can't face people anymore. I'm afraid of even simple questions. Fear has taken over me from the inside." Jack didn't laugh or show surprise. He looked at him calmly and said, "I was exactly like you, but in special operations we don't fight fear. We use it." Tom stared at him silently. Jack continued, "I'll teach you what isn't taught, but if you start, there's..." Jack talked about the first week in the special operations units. No physical training, no physical tests, just a small, cold, closed room where each person was left alone for hours, without sound, without escape, just them and their fear. The goal wasn't to overcome fear, but to understand it, to live with it, to observe it until it lost its power. He told him that they don't treat fear by escaping it, but by making you sit with it until it transforms from a monster into a shadow. And here, Tom began to realize that what he was living through was the same thing that elite men were trained for. But the difference was that he was running, and they learned how to face. From this first lesson, everything began to change in his mind. Strategy 1. Control from within. In the world of elite psychological training, the first step isn't to attack, but to observe. When your body starts to tremble, your voice starts to choke, or your mind goes silent, don't hide it. Instead, notice it. Observe it calmly, as if you're watching someone else, and tell yourself, "I'm not running, I'm observing." This simple sentence shifts your mind from the position of a victim to the position of a leader. And from that moment, Tom began to understand that controlling fear doesn't mean hiding it, but being present within it, without drowning in it. That same night, Tom returned to his room, stood in front of the mirror, and calmly told himself, "I won't run this time. I'll sit with my fear until it stops running." And for the first time, he didn't feel like a victim, but as if fear itself was the one being observed. The next time you feel anxious or phobic, don't resist it or run from it. Instead, sit calmly and start observing your body. Notice your heartbeat, notice your trembling, notice how your voice changes. But don't try to hide anything, just observe and tell yourself, "I observe my fear, but it doesn't control me." The more you repeat this exercise, your fear will start to lose its control, and you will begin to regain it. Why does this strategy work? Because when the brain notices that consciousness is present, it begins to exit the state of emergency. Instead of being drowned in fear, you become its observer, and this alone is enough to break its control. Strategy 2. Standing in the spotlight without burning out. After 2 weeks of daily exercises, Tom began to feel a real change. Fear hadn't completely disappeared, but it no longer controlled him as before. He would sit with his fear instead of running from it, observe his trembling instead of hiding it, listen to his breath instead of holding it. And here he began to notice something he hadn't understood before. The more he looked at his fear from within, the less threatening the outside became. But the real challenge wasn't sitting alone. It was the day he stood before dozens of eyes in a university lecture. The professor asked each student to stand up and introduce themselves. Some were flustered, but Tom froze. His heart began to pound rapidly. He felt heat in his face, and every part of his body signaled an impending collapse. And in that moment of fear, he remembered something his friend Jack told him weeks ago when they met. The most dangerous moment is when you stand in the spotlight, when you feel all eyes on you. Remember that you didn't come to seek acceptance, but to impose your presence. He closed his eyes for a moment, breathed slowly, and fixed his gaze on a calm spot on the wall. Then he whispered inwardly, "I observe my fear, but it doesn't control me, and I won't hide just because they're looking at me." Then he stood. His voice wasn't loud, but it came out steadily. His speech wasn't perfect, but he didn't stammer. And when he sat down, it didn't matter who applauded or who didn't, because he knew very well that he hadn't come to impress anyone. He had come to reclaim his existence. This is the essence of the second strategy. Don't ask for acceptance. Learn how to impose your presence. Social anxiety makes a person feel as if they're apologizing for their existence. In every situation, they bow their head, lower their voice, avoid eye contact, and act as if they need permission to speak. But the truth is, presence isn't requested. Presence is imposed silently. How do you apply this strategy in your life? Before any social situation, remind yourself with a simple sentence. I'm not asking anyone to accept me. I'm simply declaring my presence. Maintain physical stability, even if you feel fear internally. Keep your body standing steadily, your shoulders relaxed, and your head held high. Don't run from others' gazes. Don't stare, but don't lower your gaze too much either. Choose a fixed point in front of you and focus on it. This gives you balance. Speak as you are. Don't raise your voice suddenly or fake confidence. Just speak as you would to yourself. Why does this strategy work? Because others don't know what's inside you, but they read your body, your tone of voice, and your posture. And the more you prove to yourself that you are present without apology, your mind will begin to reprogram your reactions, and others will also start seeing a new person. And the moment you can endure being seen without collapsing, you will have crossed the first real barrier of phobia, because you finally didn't run from the light, but stood under it without burning out. Strategy 3. Transforming pressure points into signals of control. After applying the first 2 steps, something unexpected began to happen to Tom. Fear hadn't disappeared, but it had changed. It became like an internal heat that didn't hinder him, but propelled him forward. He began to speak calmly, but his voice carried something different, neither high nor hesitant, but a steady tone, as if it didn't need permission to be heard. One day, after a group presentation, he noticed that his colleagues would fall silent when he spoke. They didn't interrupt him. They didn't laugh. They didn't stare. Instead, they suddenly had a respect for him that they couldn't explain. And here, Tom understood something no one had taught him. The goal isn't to completely hide signs of tension, but to control them and make them work for you. This is the third strategy. Don't hide the pressure. Use it as a tool of prestige. Yes, your trembling hand, your slow voice, or your tense posture are not weaknesses if you know how to use them. How do you apply it? Here are practical steps to activate this mysterious prestige. If you feel nervous, don't resist it directly. Instead, slow your movements and take a moment of silence. Silence with a steady gaze is more powerful than 1,000 words. If your hand trembles, hold it steadily in front of you. Don't try to hide it in your pocket. An exposed hand, even if tense, means I'm not afraid to be seen. If your voice is slow to come out, don't apologize. Say what you want in a slow, steady tone. Slowness gives you an invisible power. Why does this strategy work? Because people don't interpret every small detail about you. Rather, they feel the energy that surrounds you. And when you keep your tension under your control, it appears as calculated tension, as if you are a person hiding something greater than what is apparent. Instead of people seeing you as a phobic victim, they see you as a mysterious person who cannot be easily broken. At that moment, you won't have hidden your fear, but reshaped it to work for you. And this is true prestige. Strategy 4. Shifting focus from yourself to those around you. After a period of practice, Tom began to notice something new. He wasn't the only one nervous in the room, and he wasn't the only one afraid of others' gazes. But he was the only one who learned not to show it. In every gathering, he started to see details: who was unconsciously moving their foot, who was avoiding eye contact, who was laughing loudly to cover their nervousness. All these things he saw because he was no longer focusing only on himself. And here, Tom entered a new phase. He no longer asked, "How do people see me?" Instead, he began to ask, who is observing and why? And what are they hiding? This is the fourth strategy. Don't put yourself under the microscope. Put others under it. How do you apply it? Redirect your attention. Instead of observing yourself, observe the facial expressions of those around you. Everyone in front of you is a human being with their own tensions, thoughts, and slip-ups. Look for the small signs. Who is shaking their leg? Who is touching their face? Who is looking at their phone a lot? This will make you feel like the observer, not the one being observed. Make yourself the silent pivot. Don't talk much, but be the one who understands what's going on the most. This alone is enough to create irresistible prestige. Why does this strategy work? Because fear arises from the feeling of being in the spotlight. But when you transform into the one observing, your mind begins to lead the situation instead of being led. And when people see that you are the person who doesn't get nervous, who observes and isn't observed, mystery begins, and a different kind of respect begins to emerge, one that isn't spoken but felt. The bottom line. The moment you stop looking for safety and start calmly reading others, you will have officially moved from the category of the fearful to the category of those who are respected. Strategy 5. When your silence speaks for you. In one of the lectures, Tom entered late and sat down quietly, drawing no attention, saying nothing. But there was something different. He wasn't withdrawn as before, nor was he overly social. Instead, he was something in between, strange, stable, and hard to precisely describe. Some students were talking nervously, laughing exaggeratedly, competing to express opinions. Tom, however, remained silent, but everyone in the hall occasionally turned towards him, not because he was speaking, but because his presence had become like a silent, undeniable sign. This is the fifth strategy. Create a silent aura that precedes your words and is enough on its own. How do you apply it? Don't show any excessive reactions in conversation, in discussion, in interaction. Maintain composure. The most balanced individuals are the most respected. Be low on interaction, but present in mind. Showing that you notice everything without participating in everything places you in a special position. Choose your words as carefully as you choose your steps. Don't talk much, but when you do speak, don't be ordinary. Choose one clever sentence that's enough to leave an impact. Why does this strategy work? Because people naturally fear what they don't understand. And the less clear and calmer you are, the more they will feel that you possess something unspoken. This creates what's known as unspoken presence. The bottom line. Not all prestige lies in words. Sometimes the most powerful psychological weapon is calculated silence. And when you are silent with confidence, your presence transforms into a message that no one can read, but no one dares to ignore. Strategy 6. Cutting the internal connection. When the battle in your head silences. Before Tom changed, there was a battle no one saw, but it exhausted him daily. Whenever he entered a hall or sat among people, he heard an incessant internal voice. Did they notice I'm nervous? Of course, I look stupid. I'll forget what I wanted to say. It's impossible to get out of this situation without embarrassment. A voice like his own, but harsher and more dangerous than anyone around him. In one of his sessions with his friend Jack told him a sentence that changed everything. In special operations, the first mental rule we learn is, if you want to face the enemy, you must first turn off the radio. Tom was puzzled. Which radio? Jack calmly replied, the radio that's playing in your head. Every negative thought, every catastrophic scenario, every internal call that pulls you back to fear, that's the primary enemy. And here, Tom understood something he hadn't noticed before. It wasn't people who scared him, but his overanalysis of everything that was the source of his true terror. This is the sixth strategy. Stop the internal translation of every action, every look, every moment. Don't allow your mind to distort reality and create a monster that doesn't exist. How do you apply it? Through silent mental training. Separate what you see from what you assume. When someone looks at you, don't rush to interpret it. They despise me. They're making fun of me. They're waiting for me to fall. Train yourself to just observe. Replace the internal voice with your own voice. When your mind starts to attack, immediately respond to it. Stop! I'm in control now. Write down the thoughts that repeat before social situations. Look at them as if they were messages from a stranger. Will you really believe them? Or have you become too strong to be deceived by them? Why does this strategy work? Because most fear doesn't come from reality, but from the scenario you create in your head. And as long as you have the power to imagine it, you also have the power to destroy it. The bottom line. Prestige begins when you silence the voice inside you that used to bring you down. And when thoughts become subject to you, not ruling over you, the first moments of true control begin. Strategy 7. Irreversible transformation. When fear becomes just an old memory. At the end of his journey, Tom's goal wasn't to become brave or social, but to become free from the old image that had imprisoned him for years. He understood from his training with Jack that there was a final step taught in elite training called irreversible transformation. This means acting in a new way for long enough until your mind forgets who you used to be. One day, Tom returned to the same university, to the same lecture hall, but this time he was invited as a guest speaker. He walked in calmly, greeted the professor he had always wished would treat him with confidence, and looked towards the last row on the right. There sat a student who looked just like him years ago, hunched, looking down, trying to be transparent so no one would see him. Tom approached and quietly placed his hand on the edge of the seat, saying to him, without asking for anything, "This used to be my seat, and this is where I started to change everything. Don't wait for anyone. Start now." Then he smiled and walked away, leaving behind a seat that no longer suited him. This is the seventh strategy. Establish yourself in the new identity so you don't return to the old one. How do you apply it? Cultivate the new personality. Every day, act as the person you want to be. Don't wait to feel the change. Live the change. Reward yourself for every small situation you overcome. Don't downplay the value of progress, even if it's slow. Your mind needs repeated evidence to redefine you. Make every new step an internal declaration. I am not going back. Why does this strategy work? Because phobia isn't a disease, it's a pattern of thinking and behavior. And if you can break that pattern and then repeat the new pattern, you haven't just overcome fear, you've become a different person. The bottom line, when you live in the new identity for long enough, your mind forgets who you were and begins to build who you are. And then, phobia will no longer be something you fight, but an old memory that no longer resembles you. Summary of the 7 strategies, from phobia to prestige. Sit with your fear until it fears you. Don't run from tension, calmly confront it. The closer you get to your fear without resistance, the more it begins to fade. Fear cannot bear direct observation. It feeds on escape. Face it, and you'll see how it collapses before your steadfastness. Stand in the spotlight without burning out. When you're under scrutiny, don't try to convince anyone of anything. Just be present, honest, and steady. You don't come to seek acceptance. You come to impose your presence. You own the light, not the other way around. Be an enigma that's hard to decipher. Don't explain yourself too much, and don't justify every action. Calculated ambiguity breeds prestige. When you speak little and do much, your silence becomes more powerful than any speech. Reduce movement to increase prestige. Your body speaks before you open your mouth. Every unnecessary movement reveals your nervousness. But when you move calmly, confidently, with a slow rhythm, everyone feels that you control the moment, not the other way around. Let the atmosphere speak for you when you are silent. Power isn't in speaking a lot, but in choosing the right moment to speak. Create a silent presence and leave space for others to feel you before they hear you. Calculated silence terrifies more than shouting. Turn off the internal radio to silence fear. The most dangerous thing in phobia isn't people, but your internal voice that exaggerates everything. Don't overanalyze. Don't review every detail. Just breathe and focus on action, not expectation. When your inside is silent, your outside calms. Establish the new identity until you forget the old. Change doesn't happen by feeling, but by repeated action. Every day you act as a strong person, you convince your brain that you are no longer who you were. And with time, that old identity becomes just a memory that no longer resembles you. In this video, we didn't just share steps. We opened doors that are usually only open behind thick walls in elite training halls. Every idea you heard here, every technique we used, was carefully chosen because it doesn't offer you a temporary solution, but a radical cure. What we offer here at DeepMind is not random, nor is it mere fleeting motivational talk. Every word is built on psychological science, real experiences, and tactics taught to the elite. Don't distract yourself with dozens of short videos. Follow DeepMind because here you don't hear empty promises, but receive practical tools that transform you from the inside out. You now have no excuse because you don't need to be social, but to be truly present and dignified. Always remember, fear isn't your enemy. It's fuel just waiting for you to understand how to use it. Phobia isn't a curse. It's an invitation to reshape yourself anew. If you've reached this moment, you are no longer who you were. You are officially one of the psychological elite of the DeepMind channel. And from my heart, I am proud of you because you stayed until the end. Because you chose to face instead of flee, to understand instead of ignore, to change instead of getting used to the pain. Hit like now so I know you're here and that you understood the message. Share this video with anyone who needs it, because you might change someone's life with a word without even knowing it. And don't forget to subscribe, because what's coming isn't just a video. It's a new psychological shock, calculated, precise, and directed at people like you who are not content to live at half capacity. Get ready, because what we're working on now is deeper, smarter, and more powerful than you can imagine. See you in the next mission.